We're doing another program today on the veterans of Cedar Valley. Our program today that we want to talk about is the Grout Museum on Korean vets, and Chris Shackelford and Aaron Dawson. Mm-hmm. Talk about what you do at the Grout Museum so that people can see you in the interview and know what your role is.
So we recently opened the Cold War Blaze Iowans in the Korean War, which is specifically focused on the troop experience in the Korean War. So we really are encouraging everybody to come on out and kind of share that, so that they can understand and maybe give a little more support and gratitude to those who served, and even just connect with family members and all the other fun things. But we've seen a lot of vets come through. They go, we've had a lot of memories shared. It's been quite an interesting experience to watch.
And what is your role there?
I'm the curator of exhibits, and then to my right over here is Chris. He's our programming assistant, research,
I'm
like everybody.
Carrying many titles, I think. Historical
Chris?
Content developer at the museum.
Content developer.
And so I help write content. I assist in the exhibit department. I assist in the programming department. And as Aaron was saying, we just opened this exhibit on service of Iowans in the Korean War, and it's been tremendous on the community support we got leading up to its opening and since it's been opened. I think that members of our community here in the Cedar Valley are really appreciating it. And I wanted to emphasize that all Korean War veterans are free throughout the duration of this exhibit. So it's up from this July to the summer, July of 2018. And so we really hope that many people are able to come out and enjoy it.
What is the process where the veterans go through to visit and also to focus on what you're trying to do with your displays and different things that's happening?
Well, a visit is pretty straightforward. You can come right down to our museum down in Waterloo, and as Chris said, this year Korean vets get in for free. And you can peruse the exhibit as you like. We are putting a call out for photographs of KIA and MIAs, and I'll probably turn that over to Chris and let him talk a little more about that.
Sure. We're really looking for the photographs of all 567 Iowans who were killed during the Korean War. We have collected around 390 of them, so we still have a ways to go. Wow. We think it's important that those people are remembered and that their stories are told, as they were unable to return to civilian life and gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms of our country. And kind of pertaining to your question as well, Sid, is our museum focuses on the story of the veterans. We do use the context of war, but we're not a war museum, we're a veterans museum. We're in the business of telling people's stories. And so when a veteran comes down, hopefully, if not their own story, but a very similar story, they can see themselves within our exhibits. That it is really about understanding people and their experiences.
And you talked about the veterans being admitted free. That was good news to me, because the question that you get out meeting with other organizations and things about the event, they said, well, how much is it going to cost, So, but the veterans are admitted free. Does that include organizations, veterans organizations, and that sort of thing too, or just Korean vets?
Well, Korean War veteran organizations, sure. If they come in their tours, they're free. The Korean War veterans are admitted for free. And I know that our department, our tourism department, takes special interests in bringing veterans organizations, reunion groups to our museum. It is a popular destination to do that. And I encourage any veterans group who wants to come and enjoy a tour to contact our tourism department, because special exception and special attention to making sure that experience is good for everyone who comes and visits.
One of the experiences I had back years ago is when you started doing the interviews, and you're still doing that.
Yes, and you can still register as a veteran with us if you stop by, I think, at the front desk. If they can get you set up with either scheduling an interview or even simply just registering as a veteran as part of our museum.
And all veterans.
Yes, that's all
and,
one.
Yeah, I can remember with the lady who used to do that at the Grout. I don't think she's doing it anymore, but anyway, she came to the AMVETS in Cedar Falls and did interviews, and I helped her set them up and line people up.
And to add to that, yes, we have our veterans database. We try to collect at least the basic information about services of people who identified at one point in their life as Iowans. You could have been born here, you could have gone to school here for a while, you could have retired here. We have a very broad definition of who is an Iowan. But to your point as well, Sid, is we collect these oral interviews, and they're priceless testaments to the experience of what people did in the service. Whether you served overseas, whether you served in a conflict, served stateside, each story is different, but uniquely Iowan in the way that we collect them.
Right.
So currently, Dr. Niemeyer, a historian, and myself are collecting these interviews, sitting down with veterans, talking to them about their services, and it becomes a part of our permanent archive. I tell a lot of veterans that the story they're telling me, yes, is important now, but it's a few generations away. It's going to have tremendous impact for your grandkids, your great-grandkids, to hear about your service directly from the source.
Oh, yes. I can vouch for that. I have grandchildren. They enjoy hearing, the story.
Yeah,
And,
I think it's always great to pass down the stories.
Yeah.
I think it makes history a lot more real to everybody, and it's interesting to relate to everybody.
And all veterans. You don't have to necessarily be an Iowa veteran, or do you have?
We focus on Iowa veterans as our primary goal
Right.
in the oral interview process, yes.
Right, okay. What do they do? How do they contact you to become, if they want to do a program with you?
Sure, you can register at gmdistrict.org. You can give us a call over at the museum, or you can stop on in, and we'd be happy to sit down and talk you through that process. It is relatively painless, a few forms, and sitting down and talking with a historian or two, and it really is just a conversation. It's less intimidating than I think a lot of people put it to be in their brain.
Well, I can say that the Colcorn chapter of Korean Vets in Iowa, and also the Taylor Morris chapter in Des Moines, are very happy to hear that they can come and visit the display. And I've already heard about it several times. So
That's good.
and I think it's a great thing that the Grout's doing for the veterans. Are there any things that, other than the interviews and that you need for the display, or that you need to upgrade the program?
The interviews and the photos we talked about with the Faces of the Fallen, we are really hoping some people come out for our programming that's associated with this display as well. Coming up on September 15th, which is a Friday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This is National MIA POW Day. So across the country, there will be programs associated with the missing in action and prisoners of war of all conflicts the United States has been involved in. But because of our special interests and our special attention to the Korean War veterans population this year, we're going to be focusing in on the 124 Iowans whose remains have yet to be returned from the Korean Peninsula for one reason or the other. So we're going to be inviting members of the state, all across the state, county representatives and VA directors from across the state to come be a part of that program. And we really hope that we do justice to those individuals whose remains have yet to be returned.
I'm sure you will. And another thing before we close, you're also doing a First World War display too.
Yep.
Can you give us a few minutes on that?
So it's so in 2017, well, April 2017 is when the United States entered the First World War, and we're kind of marking that occasion by having an exhibit from that opened in June, and it'll close in about January of 2018, and we're really looking again at the Iowan specific experience of going to the Great War, but we're also kind of honing in on non-traditional roles that you don't see a lot. So we're looking at African American soldiers and the roles that women took. I mean, this is the first time that women are serving in the military or alongside it, depending on how you look at it. And then we also take a look at Native Americans are in there as well. But we also look at the climate of the United States, you know, why exactly we may have held off for a couple years before joining, and then, you know, kind of a wrap up as the technology and how it all shook out in the end. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, that will be, yes, it will be interesting because the First World War, there's not many around anymore.
No, and we're actually really lucky that we stumbled across somebody who had interviewed Iowan veterans from that era. So we do have a couple of veterans interviews playing in that exhibit as well, which is really
Good,
cool.
that's great. We have just a minute left. In closing, is there anything that you'd like to say before we close today?
Well, I guess I would, first of all, like to thank you,
Yes.
Sid, as well as the other Korean War veterans in the community help us plan this exhibit. It's been pretty amazing how the local community has appreciated your service in these last few weeks. I know Cedar Falls just declared last week Korean War Veterans Week. I know our County Board of Supervisors in Waterloo did the same thing a week or two ago. And it's been really great to see you know, the veterans population participate in planning this exhibit, and you know, you and your comrades have been showing up quite a bit to see this, and we appreciate it.
We appreciate it too, because, you know, the Korean War was a very important war. You know, there have been, there were a lot of decisions made at that war that people are still, you know, talking about and agreeing with and disagreeing with, and it's,
And
the conversation is interesting.
It definitely set a lot of precedents for how we proceeded.
You bet.
And in our current, you know, geopolitical
Cool.
reality, it's becoming more and more relevant
Every
by
day.
the week. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I thank you very much for being here today, and hope, and maybe later on in a couple of months we can do it again.
Sure.
And kind of update people on it and promote the museum.
Sounds
thank you,
great.
Sid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here. We'll be back with another program for the veterans of Cedar Valley.